Great. So thanks everyone who put something onto the timetable. And the timetable today is first session, let me just pull it up, is going to be Sophie looking at what plants can you get started with right now. That will be for 20 minutes. Then there'll be a session by me. Last week we looked at what is biochar and how do you use it. This time we will actually look at how to make biochar. Then we'll have a 20-minute break, or if people are interested, we can organize a little breakout session where everyone can just talk to each other and just meet each other and just have a chat about anything you like. After that, so again, I'm getting some feedback from someone's microphone's on. So the next session will be Cultivating Resilience with Nature Connection, which Julie will do for us, which is a wonderful session. For anyone who hasn't done that, it's a really beautiful process. Then Alex will come and do a session on how to make a herb spiral. And then after that, it will just be questions and answers. And Sarah already has several questions that she's listed. So we'll look at that. And then at the end of that, if someone else turns up who has another session, we can either do that or we do some more questions and answers and a checkout. So that's the running order. And I'm going to hand over to Sophie.
Great. So yeah, because of my off-grid connection, Rakesh is going to help me and share my presentation, hopefully. So let's just get that to start up. So yeah, the idea behind this presentation today was, yeah, I'm teaching this course with Rakesh at the moment, and it's nice to see some of you guys here from our group about food growing. And yeah, you guys are so enthusiastic that you couldn't wait till the end of the course and you want to start right now. So after this presentation, you can go out and start your garden. Okay, so yeah, there's a lot of things, you know, you can go very deep, but this is just going to be a really quick kind of guide for people who haven't had a chance to do any gardening yet, just to give you an overview and give you some kind of signposts of where you can go deeper. In general, I think gardening is something that's very empowering, but you might find at the beginning you can feel kind of vulnerable because it's something new. You put all these plants in the ground, you're not sure if it's going to work. Are you too late? Is it, you know, someone else's vegetables bigger? And I think, yeah, it's one of those things you can really just enjoy the process and experiment, because there's no one right way to do things. It's, yeah, very particular. It really depends on your climate, on what you like to eat, on your soil. So yeah, this is a fun experiment that you can embark on. Next slide. Okay, so when we think about what kind of vegetables should we start growing, you can go and kind of randomly buy a lot of different things, but I kind of think this criteria is a good way to kind of decide what plants are going to be easy to begin with, to be sure to have success. So you want something, in this case, that can be started now. We're already kind of in the middle of the growing season, so we want things, first of all, they're easy to find. I know for a lot of people it's not so easy to get seeds. The garden centers aren't all open. A lot of online companies are very delayed, especially the small specialist companies. Oh, my presentation is breakdancing a bit. So yeah, these are things that are going to be easy to find, easy to plant and transplant, and basically strong plants, you know, that you don't need to be very precise with. If you haven't really prepared your soil properly yet, you can put them in and yeah, you're going to have an easy result. Also, in terms of space saving, because I know a lot of people have got small areas, that they want to grow in. All of these are plants that you can continually harvest from. So rather than, for example, a carrot that takes up place, these plants, you know, you can keep harvesting from the same root over a long period of time. And also, yeah, they're things that are really easy to harvest, easy to store, and to preserve. Is that my sound that's making something weird, or is that someone else? Just let me know if you can hear me properly or if there's feedback from my side.
You're occasionally a little bit Dalek-y, but it's not too bad.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, my connection's a bit dropping. Okay, so next slide. Okay, so this is the hit list. These are things that I think if you've never tried before, you're going to have a high level of success, and yeah, they're going to be really easy to grow. So these, as you'll notice, are mainly fruits, like the fruiting crops. So that's anything that's got the seeds inside it. You know, and a lot of things that we consider vegetables are botanically fruits. So these annual fruits are really easy to grow, and a lot of greens. They're very good nutrient dense food that's really worth growing yourself, because you're going to have it really fresh. You're going to be able to grow a diversity, and a lot of these things are actually really expensive in the shops if you start getting like different Asian greens and rockets and things like that, whereas they're super easy to grow. So we've got courgettes, cucumbers, pumpkins. If you're on a balcony, it might be a push. You could try a Hokkaido, which is a small Japanese pumpkin, but you might need a big tub for the roots. So you might be careful not to have your balcony collapsing. But if you've got a garden, yeah, you could have a small variety of pumpkin. Climbing beans, rocket, cress, Asian greens. So they're like plants in the brassica family, like Mizuna, like pak choi, that grow really, really easily. They germinate really fast, and you can just keep picking them over a period of time. Chard, so that's relative of the beetroot. It's got leaves like beet leaves, and you can get biennial kinds, which are like the rainbow chard, or perennial kind. So that's going to last you over more years. And kale, again from the cabbage family, and that's annual or perennial. And these things are great because they're leaves, rather than like heading cabbage that you have to wait a long time for, or broccoli. These are going to be really fast. And then, yeah, basil and dill. Next. And then companion planting. So it's all very well, yeah, making a lot of little vegetable plants and putting them out there. But if you've got a monoculture of vulnerable little vegetables that don't really know what they're doing in the big bad world, you're probably going to have some problems, mainly with other creatures that want to eat them. So companion planting is a really nice beginning step that you'll see kind of leads on to gilding and other kinds of natural ecosystemic combinations of plants. And yeah, the main reasons for doing it is that you've got plants which are strongly scented. They can confuse pests. A lot of them have volatile oils which will actually stimulate your plants to grow. They'll attract with their flowers beneficial insects, which will keep a balance with other insects that could be a problem. They could have root excretions. Also, if you're using perennial companions, like a lot of herbs, they have a bigger root system, which is going to stimulate and create a niche for diverse soil life. So rather than just having a lot of shallow annual roots, once you start to combine with deeper rooted plants, you're going to have a much better ecosystem under the soil. So basically, yeah, even though you just want to start, it's really worth taking some time to think about the whole ecosystem of the garden. And yeah, combining some things. So next slide. So yeah, here you can see some of my favorites. We've got in the middle borage. We've got on the right calendula, below it nasturtium. On the left, we've got marigold, below that lavender. So these are all things that I have in my garden in combination with annual and perennial crops. Next one. So here, yeah, is a list of some of the plants that I would suggest planting alongside your vegetables. Again, there are like so many companion plants, and there's a really big kind of different knowledge and lore and superstition and science around the combinations of plants. These again are just things that you should be able to find really easily and that are gonna grow quite fast. They'll be fine around pretty much most vegetables, and they all have some productive yields in themselves. So nasturtium, it's a really delicious plant. You can eat all of the parts of it above ground. It's really beautiful to add to salads. Borage is an amazing one. Again, that's mining minerals from the ground, attracting a lot of insects. Calendula, again, beautiful flowers, attracting a lot of insects. Lemon balm. So these first three, they're actually annual, but they'll self-seed quite easily. And these next ones are perennial. So lemon balm, garlic chive, or any alliums you find, mint, lavender, and mint. If you can find someone who's already got a plant like that, you can very easily take a piece. They divide very well. They're very vigorous. Or if you want to buy one plant, you can then grow it up and divide it and share it with other people. And then sage and lavender, they're woody plants and they're very easy to root from a cutting. So you can cut one of the little branches and you can easily root that. I actually did a presentation last week on propagation, which I can share in the group if people want to see more about that. Let's go to the next one. Yeah, so there's a lot of information out there about all the details. This is just a chart that you can look at later if you want to know about exact combinations. But generally, if you put a wide variety of plants around your vegetables that are fulfilling different functions and creating diversity in your garden, then you're going to find without too much worrying about exact placement, what goes which, that you'll have a good result. Next. Okay, so yeah, this is also a tip. If you're doing something you're planting something that's got very vigorous roots, like mint or lemon balm, and you want to put it in a bed where you've got annual plants and you don't want it to take over, what you can do is put it in a pot and sink that pot into your bed. So it's not going to dry out like a separate pot. You're going to have the benefit, the soil life is going to mix around the roots of both the quantities of soil, but you're not going to have the same problem of it taking over your whole bed if you don't want it to. And it's also nice if you start a lot of herbs like this, if you decide after that you'd like to make a forest garden patch and start putting in like fruit trees or bushes or anything you might have space for, then you've already got herbs and other plants that could be part of your guild that you could start putting into position. So this enables you to have perennial plants, but without committing necessarily to having them in one fixed place. Next. So location, what you want to think about when you're starting them is, where is the best niche? Where are these plants going to be happy? So you need to just do a little bit of surveying. Are you going to start them inside? What are the needs of the plant? They're going to need a bright place, a lot of light. So yeah, some of the things in the list, you can still start them in the house. I think it's quite cold in England at the moment. So yeah, put them on a bright windowsill. Another really important thing is keep rotating them because they're going to move towards the light, and also stroke them. They're going to be pretty weak because they don't have any wind to come and move them. The wind actually helps them to create strong stems. So if you stroke them every day and rotate them, it will help them to have a much stronger stem, and you won't have these kind of little weedy plants that will fall over. If you're going to plant them outside to begin with, direct sowing, then you need to think about, if you're having some of these plants which you're going to take the fruits or roots from, they're going to need full sun for quite a few hours of the day. So more so if you're in a northern climate like the UK, less if you're somewhere with intense sun like Bulgaria. And then if you want the plant for leaves, you can put it in a shadier place because the plant wants to photosynthesize. If it's in the shade, it's actually going to grow bigger leaves. And that's actually to your benefit because that's what you're going to be eating. And then wind protection outside. If you want to start them, it's going to be better to have some protection rather than starting them in a very exposed spot. And yeah, the great proverb, the best fertilizer is the gardener's shadow. So yeah, think about where you're going to see them and give them attention and just watch how they're getting on. Okay, next one. You want to prepare. Yeah, if you've got really vigorous mint, they're going to do everything and go everywhere. So yeah, you do need to be careful. But yeah, you can also pull them out again. So preparing the seed bed. If you're going to start by planting in a container, you can buy something specially, but I'd recommend a deep container. A lot of these like little individual kind of plugs, which are like, you know, you put one seed in each little one and it's like a kind of egg box. They dry out a lot and they break, and I wouldn't really recommend them. So you can get like big, deeper boxes that are like for window boxes. Yeah, you can get deeper window boxes, or you can recycle any plastic containers. But you just need to think, you know, have you left enough space for the roots? So this picture at the top is root bound plant. You can see they're going round and round and round and round. And if that does happen, you need to kind of tease them out before you plant it, or else you're not going to have a very happy plant. So if you're making a soil mix, ideally, if you can find something, some municipal compost, if you can access compost, which is a mix of waste and garden waste, which many of the local authorities, if you have your own compost, you can sieve it and use that. If you're buying something like a potting mix, make sure that it doesn't have peat in it. Yeah, I'm a bit behind. And you want to have a mix of about 1 part sand to 4 or 5 parts soil for drainage. Okay, let's go through the rest a bit quickly. The next one. You can also, yeah, plant the seeds directly in the garden. So yeah, if you don't want to bother with pots, and you already think that it's going to be warm enough during the day and the night, the things that you're planting. So for example, brassicas, which are more hardy, you can create a seed bed outside. So what you need to be sure of is that you've got a finer consistency of soil, just for when they're stuffed. Often do is, rather than trying to make a whole bed, I just create little nets, so little holes or little lines that I put a better soil in, and then I start the seeds in that. And then once they've grown up, they'll put deeper roots down into the chunkier soil and it will be fine. Yeah, I'm going to share this presentation at the end for sure. So in general, yeah, if we're thinking again about the plant's needs, We've got the need for light, for warmth, for moisture. So yeah, you want to keep, especially when you're germinating seeds, you want to keep them moist at all times. Boggy, but you mustn't let the seed, if it dries out, it's not going to survive. Okay, next. And so the next step is transplanting. If you've planted things inside and they're ready to come out, you want to wait. Okay, the next slide should be coming. You want to wait for their first true leaves to you can see they always have like their first seed leaf, and then they should have the next set which look more like the true leaves of the plant. So you want to wait for those to form before you move them, and generally you want a strong robust plant to not be moving fiddly little things around. And you want to harden them off gradually, so start taking them outside for a bit of time and leave them outside in the night before you move them, so they're used to the conditions. I would say transplant them in the evening. The picture on the previous slide was of like a kind of collapsed and sad looking lettuce plant. Don't worry if they look a bit sad. When you transplant them, yeah, they'll perk up after time. So just water them in well and hope for the best. Next one is just, yeah, showing how you can sieve your own compost if you're making compost. So yeah, we make a lot of compost here from Californian worms. And yeah, it can be a bit chunky, so you can sieve out the thick parts so you've got a better mix. Next slide. So yeah, the next slide is just showing some of the strategies for protecting more tender plants and also combining them with trees and other perennial plants. I guess the slides are a bit stuck. Okay, anyway, yeah, there you go. So you can see there's different covers you can make. You can plant them also under trees if you've got leafy crops. Okay, so this one is about soil life. So you need to have an active soil life to have happy plants. So remember that we're always feeding the soil life and not the plants. We're feeding the soil life and the soil life is feeding the plants. What you need to remember is that the annual plants are very heavy feeders. If we want to take a lot of food out of the ground, we're taking nutrients out of the system. So we need to think about how we can return that. Obviously, if you're composting, that's going to return any waste from your crops to the ground. But what you can also do is make a simple liquid feed. So you can take plants that are nitrogen rich and mineral rich, such as nettles, comfrey, borage, and you can chop them and put them in a container with water. Usually you want about a quarter of the container with the plants and fill it up with water, but it's not an exact science. And you want to keep stirring it all the time. You want to keep it aerobic, not anaerobic. So you want to keep getting oxygen in there. And eventually it's going to get really stinky. It's going to smell kind of like cow manure. And when that happens, you can see here it's changed color and become a lot darker. Then you can strain it and you can dilute it before you put it on your plant. So you want it 1 to 10, 1 part of the liquid manure to 10 parts water. And you want to put that on the soil around your plants. Okay, next one. Yeah, and here are just some pictures to show, you know, one, you've got a healthy, happy garden. You've got a combination of vegetables and flowers and herbs and different things going together. You can really have a lot to eat. Courgettes are notorious for giving you like more food than you know what to do with. The same with beans. You can eat them, you can share them, you can pickle them, you can ferment them. You can really get creative. Next one. And another thing to think about is, although you're growing all these things that you've decided you wanted to plant, don't forget about the weeds or the wild plants on your land. much of the time they'll actually be more nutrient dense than the things you're trying to grow. So on the left here is a picture of a kind of pesto dip that I made from all the wild greens in our garden, and it's also got some nice purslane around it. And purslane is a wild plant that in Bulgaria is traditionally ripped up and given to the pigs in the villages, and people say, ah, what's this disgusting plant getting in the way of my tomatoes? But actually it's a really, really rich plant. It's full of so many amino acids and vitamins, and it's delicious. It's got a lovely lemony, crispy taste. So see what's already growing. A lot of those plants, once you get to know them, you maybe can change this view of like, they're here only to torment me. All the plants, you know, they have their right to grow. They're also feeling a lot of biological functions. And yeah, it's nice to get to know them and see what they're doing and kind of make a balance with them in your little edible garden ecosystem. And here you can see on the right, Krasi, my partner, with some of the different veggies from our garden. Next slide. So yeah, enjoy the abundance. There's really a lot of fun and joy and practical benefit from having a garden. You know, try a few things, don't overwhelm yourself. Remember, if a system is too complicated, it will simplify itself. So don't overplant your garden so the plants don't have space to grow. Don't grow too many things that you're getting confused. Grow enough different things that you can get to know the plants and enjoy them. And next slide. And yeah, here are just a few books that are quite nice if you're getting started on your growing journey. Graham Burnett's book, The Vegan Book of Permaculture. Even if you don't think you're a vegan, most people are not going to be doing any animal husbandry in their small garden. So this is a great book explaining from a permaculture point of view, you know, small gardens, annual gardens, forest gardens. It's got a lot of recipes. It's a lovely book. Carrots Love Tomatoes, if you're interested in companion planting. She also talks a lot about medicinal herbs and their place in the garden. And the third one, Martin Crawford, How to Grow Perennial Vegetables. Once you've had a go with some annual vegetables, you might want to incorporate more perennial vegetables and experiment with more unusual things. This is a lovely book. There's a lot of really great asparagus, which is a perennial vegetable. So yeah, a lot of these are things which are considered, an artichoke here on the cover, which are considered kind of gourmet vegetables or unusual things. So there you go. Hopefully this will give you some idea. And yeah, go out into your garden and have fun. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So we're about 8 minutes over, but not a problem. We can take that time out from the breakout session.
Yeah,
so
sorry
maybe is there any like really burning question? We can ask questions at the end as well, but is there anything that anyone really wants to have answered right now? Is there anything from that presentation? No. As I was saying with the mint, if you're going to plant mint in a pot and put it into a small space, it will not contain itself. It will not stay in that pot. So at the end of each year, I would really strongly suggest you whip the whole pot out, cut all the roots off that are poking out from the bottom, and yeah, just tidy it up, because it really will spread into the rest of the plot.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Rakesh. Yeah, once you've had your growing season, take it out and take some control of the roots. And there are also different kinds of mints. I've got one growing which is Moroccan mint, which I found is quite good because the roots are not super aggressive. I've like managed to contain it a bit more. So yeah, you can experiment, but yeah, mint is known as being very crazy. So you do need to keep harvesting it and keep an eye on it.
Can I ask, does the same apply to spearmint? Because I've got spearmint in the garden. It's not too aggressive.
Yeah, I think spearmint is another one that is also not as aggressive. Like some of the kind of bog mints and apple mints and things like that are more aggressive, and the same with the melissa, the lemon balm. They're also quite aggressive. So yeah, you need to keep an eye on them.
Yeah, melissa will also spread from seeds as well.
Yeah.
Quite happily. So you'll end up having it everywhere. Whereas at least the spearmints and things will just spread through its roots primarily.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, peppermint is also quite friendly as well. I've got a black peppermint that stays relatively contained.
Yeah.
Spearmint is also relatively well contained, but melissa, everywhere.
Yeah, it's a great one if you want to think of what you're going to give everyone for presents this year. You'll have a lot of melissa plants. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're interested if you've got too much melissa, I've put a few things on my Facebook page of what I've been doing with melissa, including various lacto ferments and making some sprinkles with various other things. So yeah, check that out. Okay, so Sarah has a hand up, and then as soon as we've addressed her question, then we'll move on to biochar. So Sarah.
Yeah, I know that my questions are kind of at the end thing, but unfortunately I have to leave at 6 for this another meeting. But I just wanted to ask a quick question about the soil, because we have been trying to do this no dig thing. So we've put cardboard down and then we don't have enough compost. I'm just wondering how deep the compost should be.
Well, it depends. Depends what you're growing. Yeah, some plants, for example, like the cucurbits, like pumpkins and courgettes, you can start them off in the small amount of soil above your cardboard. And if the soil underneath is moist, they will actually break their roots through and go into the soil. Obviously, for root crops, it's not that easy. And then, yeah, some leaf crops, again, the same. So yeah, you can experiment and see. You can also dig in some places where you've got plants underneath, or you can dig one time to start off your bed so that you can avoid having lots of imports of material like soil, and then after that not dig it anymore. Yeah, it really depends. Like a lot of no dig for annual crops relies on actually a lot of imports of material. So a lot of people who do it, they bring in big loads of compost, or they make a lot of compost every year to add them to their system. So from one point of view, it is good to not disturb the soil and the soil life. But from the other point of view, yeah, you're going to have a lot of inputs into your system.
I don't know if it's still on there, but on Vertical Veg, I know he gave me a copy when he first started his project of a list of all the different root depths. He's mainly doing container gardening, but what that shows you is how much soil depth each type of plant needs. So is it 10 centimeters, 20 centimeters, 30 centimeters, 40 centimeters? So based on that, you can kind of gauge how deep your bed needs to be.
Okay, I'd be very interested in seeing that.
Yeah, Vertical Veg.
In the right direction at some point.
Okay, so we're about 15 minutes over, so I suggest maybe we move on to the next subject. And yeah, I mean, on the course anyway, Sarah, we're going to cover soil in much more detail next week, I believe. So yeah, you'll get it then. So, which is tomorrow actually. Okay, so the next session is on biochar, which is me. So let me find my presentation. Escape from that one, making biochar. Okay, so let me just share my screen. So last week we talked about what is biochar. This time we're actually going to look at how to make biochar. So just a very, very, very quick summary. Biochar is essentially it's pure carbon, and So it's taking any kind of woody material, taking all of the things that are not carbon, which we call volatiles, out of the structure, so that all you're left is carbon, and there is nothing in nature that can decompose carbon in this format. So in other words, this structure can stay in your soil for hundreds, thousands of years even, without it decomposing. And if we look at the structure, inside it, it contains millions of holes and capillaries, and basically it's a huge surface area where bacteria, nutrients, water, air can all coexist. And therefore, by putting it into your soil, you're essentially creating a structure where water, nutrients, bacteria, and air can thrive. In other words, all the things that you need in your soil. So yeah, so basically it's a soil amendment, and it helps to have so it doesn't matter if you've got sandy soil or really compacted clay soil. It's something you can add to, especially if you're adding it with organic matter. It makes really amazing soil. We'll talk more about that another time though. So how to make it effectively, what you're trying to do is you're trying to take any kind of woody material and turn it in, and basically get rid of anything that is non-carbon. And we do that with heat, not by fire though, but what we do is we want to apply heat to it, because as we know, when you apply heat to any substance, the molecules in there start to agitate, and they start to break bonds, and they start to release. So what we want to do is we want to create, but if we, in our case, what we're doing is we're starting this process by using a fire, but what we don't want is we don't want to be burning the actual material. What we want to be doing is we want to maintain that heat, that temperature, but without a flame, because what we'll end up with instead is we'll end up with just ash, and it will actually completely break down the actual material. So what we want to do is we want to create a reduced oxygen environment, so that these gases, the volatiles, are being released. In other words, we don't want to be burning the material, we just want the gases, volatiles, to be escaping. Now, if we do that, what we end up doing is we end up putting, and the way in which we see these volatiles, these gases, is because it contains various other components, we see it visibly as smoke. And these smoke particles are actually quite toxic to our environment. So the conventional way of making biochar, the conventional way of making charcoal, is actually incredibly problematic to our environment. It is one of the contributors to climate change. So instead, what we want, so the first thing we want to try and avoid is we want to avoid this smoke from escaping. So what we do is we pass that smoke through a flame, and it's a gas, remember. So and because it's a gas, if we pass it through a flame, it will actually fuel the flame. So this is what we're going to try and do. So this is, some of you may have seen, I put a really simple basic design of a really simple biochar burner on my Facebook page recently, and this is my explanation of it. So you have two barrels, one which is larger than the other, and you fill the inner barrel with the material that is going to become the biochar. The material, the woody material that you put on the outside, i.e. in the larger container, is the one that you actually set alight. So if we look at the second one, Right, imagine if we do that. Imagine we've got the woody material in the inner barrel, we've got woody material in the outer barrel as well. If we set that alight, eventually we'll use up all the oxygen and it will just smoke. And so this is not good. So what we need in order to fuel the flame is we need some oxygen. So what we do, if you look at the second drawing, is we make holes towards the bottom, as close to the bottom as possible of the outer barrel, so that we've got a constant flow of air coming in. So what happens here is as the flame gets going, it sucks up all the oxygen, effectively creating a vacuum. Now, if we have holes at the bottom, as we know, nature abhors a vacuum, so it will actually suck oxygen in, and that sucking process of oxygen fuels the flame, and so the flame continues to go. However, the material on the inside of the barrel, and remember we've taken the inner barrel, we've turned it upside down so that there's no way that well, first of all, it doesn't touch the flame. It heats up because we've got this oxygen coming in. The actual temperature of the flame is actually really intense. So the barrel itself on the inside gets very, very hot. The volatiles start to escape. It releases smoke. Now, because it's closed at the top, there's only one way that the volatiles, the smoke, can escape, and that's from the bottom. So it comes out from the bottom. It then, because you've got oxygen coming in, the oxygen pulls that smoke upwards, and it pulls it through the flame. Now, because you've now got smoke, a gas, mixed with oxygen, what that does is it intensifies the actual flame. So instead of the normal 450 degrees centigrade, you're more likely to end up with a flame that's between 700 and 1000 degrees centigrade. So this is remarkably hot. Another trick that we can do is we can put a chimney on top of it. And so imagine what's happening with the chimney effect is effectively the gases is trying to, or the flame is trying to escape upwards directly if it's open. But now by putting a chimney on, you've actually curtailed it. You've actually, you're preventing the actual air from and the fire from escaping as efficiently as it wanted, which actually creates a suction effect. So it needs to escape, but it's trying to escape through a smaller hole, which means that it's going to try and push much harder, which creates a vacuum underneath, which effectively means you pull more oxygen in. So what you're doing is you're increasing the rate at which the flame, the intensity of the oxygen coming in, and therefore the intensity of the flame. So it's a really simple, very, very basic model. And if you want to be cooking on it, then, you know, what I do is I just put a cast iron pot on top of the inner barrel, which I put onto 3 bricks, so that air and oxygen and heat can also come from underneath as well as the sides, etc., etc. So here's a very simple, here's the one that I made recently, and I've actually reused an existing one that I was using in a different way. So this isn't the ideal setup. Normally what I would want to do for this is at the bottom of the larger outer barrel is I'd want to put the holes at the side, but on this case, because I'd already made it into a different system, I've already got holes at the bottom, so I've had to adjust it a little bit. The inner barrel is just a barrel. There's no holes in it whatsoever, and this is the chimney. So as I say, the outer barrel already has some holes, and I actually had a chimney going through the center of this previous one, so that's why you've got that strange star shape. As I say, there's no holes in the inner barrel, and this is how I effectively connect the chimney to the top. So in this case, what I did is I was turning my bramble into biochar. So this is the bramble that I was drying, so I've just left it there for a while until it's really properly dry. I fill it in. Sorry, I didn't have a photograph of filled in bucket, so here's a SketchUp version. So I fill the inner barrel with the woody material, then I turn it upside down, put it into the outer barrel, fill it with more material, and the stuff on the outside is effectively what's going to burn. So in this case, I will actually produce ash from this. Set it alight, optionally put a chimney onto it, and then towards the end of the sorry, Emma, can you mute yourself, please? Because I'm hearing a lot of noise from your family. Thank you.
Sorry.
So in this barrel, so this is now the last picture is of it more or less at the very, very, very last minutes. You can see it's burnt right the way down to the bottom, and you've basically just got embers. So that's the simple version. And when we pull it out, we can see, because of just the nature of it, the very, very top, there's going to be a tiny bit at the top which isn't going to become biochar. That's quite literally in the first 1 or 2 centimeters, but then everything else is biochar. And here you can see, you know, everything in the middle of this pot is turned to biochar. You can still see the structure of the bramble with all the spikes and everything. And what I then do is I then put it into a bucket and crush it down, and as much as I can, so it becomes more or less like a powder. So that's that version. How am I doing for time, by the way? I still have 10 minutes, is that right? Sophie or anyone? Okay, I'll keep going until I'm
Keep
done.
going, yeah.
Yeah. So this is the more conventional one that I make. The reason why I made that big one is because I had a huge amount of bramble that I just wanted to get rid of as quickly as possible, and I wanted a lot of biochar because I'm doing some work and I'm remaking some new beds and things. So yeah, so I just wanted to convert that to biochar as quickly as possible. But this is the more conventional one that I'll make. So anyone who's done a permaculture design course with me, there's a 90% chance you've probably made something like this. So with this, we have the main burn chamber just has holes at the bottom. And that's the burn chamber. We fill that with our woody material. And as I say, the bottom air holes are for your primary air, and I'll explain that in a moment. We then make some holes at the top for secondary air. And again, I'll explain that in a second. So now, all right, so if we think about it, if we again set this alight, it's going to suck air in from the bottom. And again, someone else has got their microphone on. Hayley, perhaps? Maybe switch your microphone off. So, yeah, sorry. Let me just switch. I'm getting a lot of noise from someone. Okay, muted. Oops, go back. So yeah, so imagine if we set this alight, it's going to suck the oxygen in from the bottom, and it's going to continuously burn. And if we allow that to happen, we're not actually going to end up with biochar. We're just going to end up with ash. So what we need to do is we need to find some way to stop the oxygen coming in from the bottom. And typically what I do is I prop up the actual chamber with a stick of some sort, And then once it's really going, once the flame has really taken, I'll pull that out, and it completely reduces, not completely cuts off, but really significantly reduces the rate at which oxygen can come in from the bottom. So what this will do is it will then force it to start to smoke. So now what we want to do is we want to turn that smoke in, we want to basically get some oxygen into the actual chamber so that it can actually turn that smoke and burn the smoke and turn it into a flame. So what I do in this particular design is I put and this is my design, I've never seen anyone else do this before, but I put a lid onto it with a chimney, and by doing that, if you imagine, as the bucket heats up, as the burn chamber heats up, the sides between the burn chamber and the red thing, the outer baffle, heats up, and because it heats, any air that's in between there starts to rise. It's basic physics. So now we've got heat rising, and because there's a lack of oxygen on the inside, because we're burning up the oxygen, it's going to get sucked in. And so now you've got smoke coming from the woody material. You've got oxygen being pumped in from the top. And once this oxygen mixes with the smoke, and because you've already got a flame going, you've got the embers at least, now you've got combustion. And again, because of the chimney effect, you've got this suction moment action going, and therefore it's going to pull even more oxygen in. So once this is going, what you'll hear is this kind of rocket sound, this flame. It's not an open flame sound. It really sounds like a rocket. And now you know that that's really working. And I'll show some pictures of that in a moment. And basically, if you want to make that into a cook stove, you basically put a pan support on top, which is just could be another bucket with a hole taken out from the bottom. And then normally I put rebar through it so that I can then put a pot on top. So this is the basic chamber, the burn chamber, with, you can just about see the holes in the side for the secondary burn. This is the baffle and chimney. You put that on top of the barrel, and then you put a pot stand on top of it with some rebar into which you can put your actual pot. This is another version where, and so yes, so that previous one is my design. This design is a more conventional way of doing it, where you actually put a baffle around it, but not all the way to the top, and you have a separate lid with a separate chimney. In this case, I would say that chimney is too small. It needs to be wider to be more effective, but that's all we could find. Most of this stuff, I should say, is stuff that I scavenge, that I just find in skips and things that people throw away. So in this particular case, that chimney is not the right size. But here in the middle picture, you can actually see the flame is actually shooting out from the holes in the side. If the holes were a little bit smaller, it would almost look like a little gas fire. So it's a really interesting, this process is called pyrolysis. And in this particular case, the last picture is, this is the only pot we could find that someone was willing to put onto a system like this. So normally you'd have a bigger pot that is maybe 1 centimeter or 2 centimeters smaller diameter than the actual pot stand. So in other words, when it hits the bottom of the pot, it goes out to the side, and it's forced to then heat the side of your pot, the bottom and the side of your pot, and therefore heats things very quickly. Actually, I can say on this previous one here, when we used this, I was a course we did in Croatia, we had a huge pot. We were cooking for 30 people. I'm not so good with liters, but maybe imagine like a 20 or 30 liter pot of beans that we were cooking. We got it to the boil in about 5 minutes. It was so quick that people didn't have time to get prepared for the beans boiling over, and it was quite a scene. I think maybe there was a little video of it. It was quite comical, watching these beans boil over and people struggling to keep control of it. It quite literally brought this huge pot to the boil in 5 minutes, and people were shocked. As I say, it gets to about 1,000 degrees centigrade. I mean, just look at that flame. That's a really beautiful, clear flame. So I think that's the last of my slides. That's how to make biochar. Okay, any questions coming up from that? So there's a lot of information online. Me personally, I don't follow techniques. I understand patterns, I understand principles, and then I use different tools and different ways to actually make it. So every time I've made it using different materials in different ways. So if you look on my Facebook page, you'll see I think I've got a folder with maybe, I don't know how many I've shown, maybe 10 different styles of biochar burners, but in particular I make cook stoves. So any questions coming up from that? Just quickly check the time. So we said we go to 50, so yes, we're another 5 minutes out, break out to about 10 past. So effectively, yeah, we may as well just use these 3 minutes and then we'll choose if we're going to do a breakout or not.
Hey, hello, Rakesh and everyone.
Oh, dude, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm doing really good. I arrived a little bit late because I had to put my bread in my oven, but it's a bit related to this. Anyway, so I missed I just actually wanted to hear if you had. You have other, I don't know if you've said that already, if you have, you know, in other ways than the photos you've shown here, have kind of a sketch or something like that, or a write-up, I don't know, something of the design of your biochar stove that you also showed, I think, was it yesterday or the day before yesterday?
Yeah, I did share that at the beginning. I shared some photos and a quick sketch. So I'll share the whole presentation so you can get access to the presentation. And then I can talk it through with you. But it's probably the simplest biochar burner you can imagine. It's just one bucket with no holes in it, upside down in a bucket with holes at the bottom. That's it. Put a chimney on it, make it more effective. You're done. Very simple, super simple. Any other questions? Yeah, Anna.
Rakesh, I remember last time you were saying about, I mean, I'm still struggling to know how to actually make the biochar, but once you have it, you said you spread it in the woods in the autumn. Do you spread it, but do you put something underneath it? I mean, unless it's some place that it's untouched, maybe you can pick it up again, but.
Okay, so the biochar, before you put it into the soil, you typically need to charge, and that's why the alternate, you know, if you're going to put it right now, then I need to charge it. So the trick that Sophie showed of making the liquid feed, I would do exactly the same, and then I would add the biochar into that liquid feed, and then I would put that into my soils. I could, or I could put it into a compost. There's lots of different ways I can charge it. You can urinate on it, and there's so many different ways you can put nutrients and encourage the right type of bacteria into it. and then you put that onto your soils. You can either put it directly on top of your soil, or you can mix it in. As I say, it works really well if you add it with some kind of organic matter, to really put organic matter into your soil, because that's also full of life. And so, yeah, so you can mix that into your soils, especially when you're starting a new bed. If you're going to do the, I think maybe it was Sarah who was talking about doing a like a lasagna bed and putting cardboard and stuff down, compost and cardboard and things like that. So maybe you could add it to that layer underneath the cardboard, and then it eventually, as the worms come, the worms start moving everything and mixing it in. So, yeah, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Cool. So yeah, there's a ton of information online. So yeah, but you know, I'm always happy to talk about biochar. So if you've got any other questions, then obviously feel free to ask me as well. Okay, so if there's no other questions, I suggest we move on. So there's the breakout, then, which we pretty much use the time for the breakout, if that's okay. So the next session is about cultivating resilience with nature connection with Julie. And I see Julie is online. So I'd like to hand over to you. Obviously, if you need a break, just take a break yourself and yeah, come back as and when. But if it's okay, I'd suggest we try to get back onto time and move into Julie's presentation. So go for it.
Oh, hi everyone. It's really nice to see you all. Yeah, I'm just taking a breath because it's so lovely to listen to the last two presentations. They were really good. So I'm just centering myself to share with you about, yes, cultivating resilience around nature connection and with nature connection. It's a subject really close to my heart, something that I've worked with myself forever, and so have each and every one of you guys. It's something that is intrinsic within us, but the type of nature connection that I'd like to sort of go a little bit more into is actually one that we work with consciously. So, and I've got some slides ready, which I'm going to, hopefully they will work out really good and I'll be able to show you. But mainly the difference between conscious connection with nature and just having the sort of unconscious connection with nature is much the same as anything that we might wish to connect to. You know, we are bringing ourself and showing up as the whole of ourselves, and then be willing to sort of receive and whatever there is out there. So the very first thing is obviously our mind. So how do we view nature, and where does this view come from? Well, from ancient times, when in past ways, when we would rely entirely on nature for our every need, it was very natural for those people, our ancestors, to be connected so that we could eat, to celebrate, to share everything. The life and death process was very much connected with the nature cycles. So when you start to think about your own lives, you know, it's easy to think immediately that we get up when the sun rises, which is very comfortable for us actually. So just taking your attention to thinking about, you know, the sun rises, we're aware of the birds, and the day begins. So in your subconscious, in your very being, is this connection to the seasons, to connections to the day, And, you know, just to pluck one little benefit out from there, which lots of people know who go camping or who like to sleep outside in a hammock even, which is really rather nice if you've got the weather. That sort of thing can sort of reset our internal body clock, for instance, really quickly, definitely within probably about a week of camping out. People who have previously had difficulty getting their natural sleep rhythms in check, find that type of thing. I always look forward to the summer when we can go and camp. It does sort of reset me, which is just fabulously wonderful. But that's just a tiny example of how we are unconsciously, if you like, connected to the natural world. So I've put this off long enough now, and I'm going to actually share my screen. Okay, here we go. So I want to get to the right one. Just bear with me a minute. So, okay, so now I need to go to, I would really, really like to go to slide. So just bear with me. You edit. Oh. Can you guys see that? Can someone go on to tell me whether you can see that or not?
Yes, we can.
There is a way, I know, of putting it into slides, and now I just can't remember.
Not go to slideshow.
Well, there's a slideshow option at the top of your screen. You've got your, well, your cursor was on it a few seconds ago.
I got it. Oh, perfect. I was like, perfect. Okay, there we got it. Okay, so, right. So, you know, I was talking to you a minute ago about consciously connecting to nature. So just to tell you a little bit more about what I mean here, and if Rakesh can still hear me, if you can give me a 5-minute warning, Rakesh, for time-wise, that would be really
Sure.
cool.
No problem.
Thanks. So when we're sort of backpacking, and you could indeed, if, you know, most of you might, some of you, in fact, most of you will probably say, actually, I do really connect with my garden. But for some people, traditional gardening, rather than permaculture, absolutely, that backpacker there could actually be a gardener, just in their own world, not really paying much attention to the surroundings around them. So that would be one way of going into nature. And it's very common when people are using activities of any sort which is in nature. So yes, obviously benefit comes from that, and we really do enjoy it. We have a lot of fun, but do we interact? Are we consciously connecting? Are we aware of the other life around us? Are we aware of our impact on that other life and how that other life can impact us? Not really in this particular mode. This person looks like they're quite busy, and they're in their own thoughts, and they're busy going through where they're going. So they might have an idea about where they actually want to reach to. And there we go. So in this particular mode, there's very little that can sort of go in and out. So this is the little bubble here. There's nothing really coming in and out. So in permaculture sort of feelings, you've got the boundaries here, and boundaries and edges are so important. They're very, you know, they're living, vibrant areas. So, you know, what we want to do is expand that. So then if I can show you the next one. So here, if this was a gardener here, for instance, or a walker or a sitter, which I was going to tell you about in a second, suddenly their awareness is taken away from their immediate bubble, and they start to interact. So interacting creates the available interconnectivity with the life around you, beginning to understand where you're at, whereabouts you are, and whereabouts everything else is, and how important the system is to each individual, and how important each individual is to that system. So the understanding of our conscious connection to nature, sorry, that's my dog, is very different to the first one that I showed you there. So while we think about that just a little, and that's going through your minds, what we've got here is the first picture of a little girl. Children, they just tend to connect easily with nature because it's they haven't actually learned not to. Many of the behaviors that we have around nature and to each other and to community are actually learned behaviors, and they come from, you know, we could have a conversation all day about that, but nature, the essence I'd like to get over in this short period of time for you is, you know, just to think about the naturalness and the beauty and the wonder that children have, that wonder and awe, and they just naturally start interacting and connecting with their environment in such a wonderful way. So, and there's another chappie down there, there's another picture there, and that person is actually in nature and taking notice of what there is around him. So this is a really useful practice for us as permaculturists, in any form, wherever you want to take the permaculture structure. And it is beautiful. So he's sitting and observing, he's interacting, and he's surveying everything around him. So when we give ourselves time, we feel a sense of place. That's the first thing I've written there. We experience ourselves as interconnected with all of life. You know, so it doesn't take many minutes sitting before you might see the arrival of different animals, insects. You might actually notice if you sit there long enough, and I would also advise people to create situations of sitting in the same place day after day after day, or just realizing that the observations that are around, you'll see the plants growing. And I was a lovely something that Sophie shared, which I really liked about the gardener and the shadow, you know, the presence being there on a regular basis, and how nurturing that is for the plants. But this is how very nurturing it is for yourself as well, because you'll create a relationship with those plants. Also, she mentioned beautifully, I thought, about stroking the plants and how they might get stronger on their seeds, and that is so true. Also, if we were going to think about some science behind that, you know, there is a lot of science now that shows that when we do connect with our plants in this intimate way, they become, you know, they know us like we become to know them. They have a different way of doing it, but you know, so you can look into it quite deeply, actually. So understanding the value of ourself and all of life. It's a wonderful way of creating community. So community can be you within your garden community. You are creating a community, again, by putting in all those wonderful supportive plants, the diversity where they're supporting you, they're supporting, you know, with your food and your body, and also they do a lot more to our hearts, minds, and spiritual understandings, as well as our senses, which I want to get onto in a minute. So you reach the hidden depths of health, vitality, and direction. Ooh, that's sort of a bit deep, isn't it? We probably won't have time to do all of that today. Rebuilding purpose and meaning, again, quite deep, but nature is the original mindfulness teacher. So how do we awaken a deeper connection with the nourishing and creative power of our nature and within nature around us? Well, we want to rekindle, re-inspire, renew, reignite our longing for the lost awareness and harmony with our birthright connection to all living things. So this is, you know, as soon as you're born, you're in the earth. In fact, before you're born, you're in the, you know, your mother in this wonderful womb environment. you know, feeling extremely connected to all of life. So what we need is curiosity and self-inquiry, just to sit there in your sit spot and see what's around you, you know, who's visiting who, and what that actually means in a real sense, an embodied way.
5 minutes, Julie.
Great, thank you, Rakesh. Discovering tools of learning, which is very mind, but then we've got the heartfelt wisdom and ancient practices of deep awareness, which you can cultivate if you don't already. Some of you, I'm sure, do. And then activating the senses. I've just got a couple of minutes to talk to you about that. So when we awaken the senses through nature connection, we get something called sensory integration, which again is too much of a big subject just for now. But basically they lead to health and happiness and emotional regulation. You might think, ooh, that's a big word for nature connection. It is really, isn't it? But that just means that, you know, with nature, I think we start from the starting point of being totally unjudged, and we, you know, we can be ourselves. It's a place for, like I say, wonderful self-inquiry. So when we're activating the senses, you know, obviously there's taste, and there's memory then when we taste things. And so you'll find that with your permaculture gardening, you've got your hands in the soil, you're tasting what you're growing, you're not only looking, you're going much, much further. You're moving in the garden, you're listening, touching, smelling, and of course you're using your intuition a lot. So all of these correspond to, I don't think I've actually got much time now really to go too much into these, but just a quick overview, and then I'll finish with a few words. So when we're in the garden, the ancient practices used a compass-like map, if you like. So this compass map can represent lots of things and can help us internalize, and I've lost a word I want to use right now, hurrying myself. So I think that you can sort of get the quick gist of a day in the directions. Obviously everybody knows that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, and that, but we've also got the north and the south, and you know it's really hot in the summer in the south, and it's pretty cool in the north, especially if you're in Scotland, in the you know, in the night time. So the north represents night. So let me just see what I've, yeah, so we'll go back because we're sort of running out of time now. So I just want to show you the sit spots, which I appear to have lost. The technology, sorry. So basically that gives you a little overview, and I hope you've enjoyed it and it's given you something to think about. So next time you go into your garden, it would be wonderful, or into nature, you can start just, you know, first of all mindfully, and then it goes into the heart and the rest of your body, and then you start to embody the connective practices of looking at even the tiniest. One of the things that I do sometimes in workshops is, you know, is to ask, what is the furthest sound you can hear when you're sat somewhere? What is the smallest thing that you can see, and how is that interacting with its environment? You know, what is actually just speaking to you in that moment? What are you grateful for? How do you want to react with your surroundings? Are you going to be completely inclusive of all of life and give your whole self to your practice? And it really works dividends in what we benefit, how our health and our well-being can benefit from these practices. So thank you. It's been lovely to share these with you. I'm looking forward to perhaps sharing something else another time. But thank you ever so much for listening. It's been great. I'm going to just try and give you back the screen.
That's really, really, really beautiful, Julie. We've got maybe 1 or 2 minutes. Does anyone have any questions, anything they'd like clarified, or I don't know, maybe you'd like to give some pointers, for example, where they can find out more information about this? Because it really is a beautiful practice. I was doing it for a while, and
Yeah, I'm
had
sure.
my sit spot, and where you get to the point where you really start recognizing the birds, and you start getting them to understand their language. You get to hear what's really going on outside in your space, you know. And yeah,
Yeah, well,
it's really beautiful. I can't recommend it highly enough. It's a really intuitive practice that really brings about so much more richness than you could just imagine by just thinking about what it might bring you. It really is.
yes.
Enriching
Thank you,
process.
Rakesh. I'll put together something that's interesting for people with some resources,
Wonderful.
and then to pass on to you, and
So
then.
Nirmala has her hand up. So
Oh, sorry.
yeah,
That's okay. I just wanted to share that some of you may have heard of Maria Montessori. She was an Italian educationalist in the last century.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that she really, I remember when I did the training for teacher training, teaching children, and she advised that, you know, to take children to the same spot in the forest or in a garden or somewhere in nature, to take them to the same spot throughout the year, every day, take them on a walk, but to get them to sit in one place and to observe the changes throughout the year in that one place. Or write about it or talk about it afterwards, but you know, she suggested sitting with the children, just sitting quietly and getting them to observe the changes in the plants and the trees around them each day, particularly over the seasons. And that's very much the same principle, really, isn't it? Just being absorbed in your environment and you know, to be very aware of it and to become present in it. It's very much harmonizes with what you're speaking about, Julie.
Thank you. Yes, indeed. Yes, I do know that work. Thank you very much. I'll get together some more resources to share, and hope maybe I'll have a chance again to share another deeper practice. Just keep giving you little nuggets, maybe you can do. Thank you.
I'm actually noticing that Alex isn't actually here, who's supposed to be doing the next presentation.
Oh.
So would you like to maybe take 5 minutes and just explain what the sit spot is?
Oh, yes. Yes.
I think that's something that people can just do straight away.
Absolutely. And
that's okay with everyone else?
5 minutes, yeah.
So,
So
wonderful.
I'm actually going to share a practice with you, which I think is a really core practice about a sit spot, because I find that it gets you going immediately. Okay, so I'm going to do a funny little thing like this. And you're thinking to yourself, oh, what's she doing? Well, this is, if you could sort of look, you know, the little light on your phone or your computer that is actually, look over the top of your computer or what it is you're looking at and see something in the distance, and then bring your attention, if you want to play with this, okay? So I'm just going to show you. So you're bringing your attention to your hands, and then if you could just play, and you can play with this while I then continue to speak, keep looking forward, but then be aware of your peripheral vision. So if you wiggle your fingers, you'll be able to see your peripheral vision, and your hands will get wider and wider and wider, and then you can also go up, and they'll get, but you're not looking at your hands, you're just looking ahead, and you'll see where your peripheral vision actually goes to. So this practice can actually increase your peripheral vision, because many times in the modern society, we're just, you know, looking like this. I mean, we're doing it now, looking at the screen. You know, it's amazing how we've created this when really we want to create this, you know, around us. So this peripheral vision is what we concentrate on or consciously be aware of in the sit spot. Now, a sit spot's a lovely activity. You can use somewhere that you really love. I would recommend somewhere that you can visit regularly, and much the same as we were just chatting about then with the Montessori, you know, to go back time and time again, you develop a practice, a relationship with the area, with the place. You begin to learn what it's like throughout the seasons. But basically, you will see, if you can do it, you sit down or you stand or you get yourself comfy is the best thing. But the transformation that occurs, and doing it on your own is good. If you go with a partner or a group, you know, it's nice to actually just be spaced apart. So you're out of each other's aura and you're not tempted to chat, because I do find that when I do with groups, they go off and they chat. It is great. But, you know, the thing is, this singularity of being in your own company, connecting with the world around you. So when you found that place and you're comfortable with it, to return to it often is fantastic. So then to use your peripheral vision is a really wonderful thing, because what that does immediately is we go from the internal bubble to the external bubble, and this creates a different wave in the brain, and it opens our heart. It's really exciting, you know, the science behind this as well, if you're interested in that. It's an ancient practice, but you know, science likes to have its say and statements about it now, so it is good. You can look it up. So also that happens with your ears, you know, so you can play little games with your ears. What can you hear, you know, in the distance? What can you hear near to yourself? Where is your attention going? And you can use that to sort of make it wider and bigger. And then our senses, you know, think about touching and feeling as well as just watching. And you can make a notebook, and you can talk to your inside. You can start journaling in this lovely place. You can create a relationship with all those things around you. I think that might be my 5 minutes, Rakesh, yeah?
Sure. Oh, and
Go
Alex
on.
has just turned up. So wonderful. Thank you so much, Julie. That's really, so there's 2 hands still up. So Anina, so Alex, you're a little bit late. Your session should have started 7 minutes ago. So are you okay to do it in 12 minutes, 12, 13
Yeah,
minutes?
no worries, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, there's maybe just one person just has their hand up. I just want to just quickly check in with Anina. Is it a quick question?
Yeah, it was just about the asking, we were talking about the place to sit, and I'm wondering, because I've kind of practiced like feng shui philosophy in the garden, and I'm wondering if there's another opinion different from sitting in the area northwest, which represents kind of mentors, helpful people. Is that that's always been the best space for me to sit, but I'm wondering, is there any other kind of idea or philosophy around which area to pick in your garden to sit?
Oh, do you know, if Rakesh would let me, I'd love to speak about that next time, because
So I think, yeah,
a whole load. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
definitely I can private message you if you specifically want something now, but I'm aware
or maybe
of
we can do something at the end as well.
yeah,
There's a little time
we
there.
can maybe work something out for that, but that's a wonderful subject. Thank you for the question. I absolutely love it and would love to answer more fully.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Alex to talk about.
Oh, yikes! Oh, straight in there. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about herb spirals. Familiar with herb spirals? Anyone that doesn't know what herb spiral is? Okay, so I've actually, can I do the screen sharing thing?
Yep, you should be able to share the screen. There should be a green button towards the bottom somewhere normally.
Will I be able to see everyone as well?
If you have the latest version of Zoom, which then yes, you can, there's an option to have a split screen mode.
Yikes, okay.
Yeah, it's only just, I only just downloaded it yesterday, so.
Okay, I might just try flicking between the screen and sort of talking. So,
Okay.
oh, okay. That's the one I want.
So while Alex is doing that, I can quickly fill in that Alex and I have known each other for a very long time. We used to DJ together about 20 years ago, was it?
About 20 years ago.
Yeah, it was, I can't remember exactly when, but yeah, back in the days when I was DJing professionally. Great fun.
Have I managed to share my screen?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
So I've put a couple of possible definitions of a herb spiral. So one is just a beautiful living sculpture. And then one I like is it's like a herbaceous kind of helter-skelter, you know, those things you get at fun fairs. Because it's based on a pattern from nature, which is the spiral. And it's combined with a shape, which is the mound. So it combines the two, and by doing that, it creates different levels and different areas of light and shade. So you can and it also creates little microclimates. So depending on how much water and heat different areas get, it creates little microclimates. So you can create different areas that are suitable for different herbs. For example, so in my picture, that's my attempt at a herb spiral in the picture. It's not a particularly nice looking one because I used broken paving slabs to make the walls. And also it's could have been a bit more built up. The like mound sort of part of it, each layer could have been a bit more higher, but it's an example anyway, and I've got a few other examples to show you. So yeah, so you can plant herbs that suit the different areas, depending. So you'll get in the spiral, you'll get an area that gets more sun because it's south facing, and you'll get an area that's shaded, and you also get an area where there's where it's free draining. So the top of the mound will like be free draining because the water will just sink to the bottom through gravity. So you'll get a nice area at the top for plants that like free draining soil, and then you can have plants that like moister soil at the bottom. So I've put some of the permaculture principles used are diversity, meet your own needs, maximize yields, and low maintenance, because basically once you've planted it up, it's kind of self-maintaining. And in terms of meeting your own needs, you can plant, you don't have to use just herbs. You can, I mean, I've got celery leaf in the top of mine, which is like a vegetable, and you could add garlic, or you can mix things up a bit. But in terms of meeting your own needs, they can be culinary, they can be medicinal, they can just be decorative if you want them to be. The idea is to pack in as much diversity into like a small area, and because it's using the spiral, you're kind of space saving. So in about, I think my one's about 1.5 meter diameter, but you're like, obviously because you're gradually going upwards, you're just packing a lot more plants into that space than if it was flat. So I'm just going to go on to the next thing. So here's some awesome spirals from nature. I like the what do you call those, like feelers, like you get on pea shoots and stuff.
Tendrils.
That's the word I was looking for. Thanks, Rak. So yeah, it's, so I suppose relating it to permaculture, you're using a pattern from nature, and I'm trying to think of some other patterns that are used in permaculture. I don't know if anyone can. There's what's the one? You can do like a similar to this herb spiral. There's one that's like a mandala sort of garden with like a lock, kind of like a keyhole. That's the one. Yeah, keyhole kind of pattern. But it's also about, I suppose, it's about observing patterns, like just the daily patterns of like where you're getting your sun. So where the sunniest spot in the morning, where you might have breakfast, or where you get morning sun and then evening sun. So you're making those observations when you're sighting it. So let's go on to that now. Sorry. So I've just, can everyone see that? So I've just chucked in an acronym there, which is SADI, which is for survey, assess, design, implement. So the surveying bit is observing where your own site, where you get the sun, if you've got maybe a sloping garden, how you're going to incorporate it, and you want it to be, ideally you'd want your herb spiral to be as near as possible to your kitchen, because that's where you're going to use the herbs. And if you're talking about zoning, that would be in your sort of near to home zone, place you go most often, so that would be in your zone 1. And yeah, so we're making it to suit our own needs. So before you start making the thing, you want to sort of decide what you want to use it for, whether you want it just for kitchen herbs, or whether you want more medicinal herbs. Ideally, you want to, if you want it to be kind of low maintenance, you want to use lots of perennial herbs that will just kind of look after themselves once you've planted them. So I'm just going to go on to the next example. So this is an example of spiral made with bottles, which are a great way of recycling bottles. And you can use wine bottles or beer bottles. This is quite a simple one with 3 layers. And a good thing about using the bottles is they absorb heat during the day and then they release it at night. And then we've got a cross section of herb spiral here, which just shows at the bottom. You can see the different elevations, and if you want to, you can add a little pond area into your herb spiral, which is quite nice. I've seen people do that with just something as simple as burying a bucket, but if you want wildlife, to sort of attract wildlife with it, you use maybe a rubber liner and make the edges gentle so that frogs and stuff like that can get into your pond, but that would go somewhere at the bottom. So yeah, a sort of typical size for a herb spiral is about 2 meters across by 1 meter high. It doesn't have to be as big as that, because obviously depends on the space you've got available in your own garden. I think mine's definitely not a metre high. Mine's probably about 2 to 3 foot high. Well, it's less than a metre, I know that. It's probably about 2 foot.
So theoretically your time's up, Alex.
Okay.
Do you want to maybe though take, let's say, another 3-4 minutes?
Yeah, can do, because I think I've just got a couple more examples to show. This is just an example of planting, which is, so it's got this kind of it's got a mixture of plants, this example. So it's got things that are medicinal, like echinacea, that are also good, like they've got flowers that attract pollinators, and feverfew, which is great for migraine. So that's just an example planting. Really, you can plant them with whatever suits your needs. So if you wanted to do something medicinal, you could just plant it out with medicinal herbs. If you want to do something just purely for the kitchen, you can get it that way. This is just touching on aspect. So you'll want to plant the herbs that love sun, south facing, ones that prefer cool and shade, like coriander would be on the north facing side, and anything that likes more moist soil would be on your bottom layer, and the free draining stuff at the top that likes full sun. I think some people even stick sprinklers in the middle, so they just turn on a sprinkler and it just kind of waters the whole thing. So I've just got a quick slide on microclimates. So it's little microclimates are created in your herb spiral by the amount of water and heat received in each area. So yeah, even within a sort of small area, you can get variation. And then that's just my own herb spiral, just from another angle, I think. So I think I did that in early spring, around late February or early March. I've got sage, lavender, thyme, catmint, rosemary, tarragon, lemon balm, spearmint, marjoram, oregano, chives, and celery leaf. And I've still got, and sorrel, and I've still got sort of little spaces to plant more stuff. So when you initially plant it out, you need to leave enough space for the herbs to sort of spread, especially if they're perennial. And then so yeah, the basic steps to making one. You level your area where you're going to make it. I just used a stake with string to mark a circle, and then you can mark out the spiral. I think I just literally drew mine with a stick, but you can use stones to mark it out. And then you build the walls, and if you can use something you've already got, then that's great, or like beer bottles, or I use broken paving slabs because I had a load of broken paving slabs. And then you fill it with your soil and compost, and then plant it up. Obviously, bearing in mind the conditions that each herb likes. So you need to sort of think carefully about where each herb's going to go. But the good thing is you can always observe it and kind of keep an ongoing observation of it. And if something's not liking a particular spot, then you can just reshuffle it and plant it in a different part of the spiral. So yeah, that's herb spirals. If anyone's got any questions, fire away.
Awesome. So yeah, so any questions? One little trick that you can also do, as Alex said, is putting making sure there's enough room for plants to expand. But what you could be doing in the meantime is fill those spaces with annual plants. So things that you plant just this year, so it takes up or occupies the space, and it prevents other things from just finding their way in that maybe you don't want. But at the end of the year, as they die back, maybe they're even self-seeders, as they die back, the other things can start taking that space as they expand and grow. So it's using the whole succession pattern of yeah, working with succession. So Anina, you have a question? You're on mute. I'll unmute you.
Got it.
Okay.
Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to ask a question. You mentioned south direction for the spiral. Now, herbs, from my understanding, they do pretty well anywhere, northwest, north, northeast, south, depending on what the herbs specifically are. I've got a problem, and I'm looking for a suggestion. I had planned a spiral adjoining a dry creek area in the garden coming from south. Although in feng shui terms, north is water, so the water should generally flow down the way, and that's the kind of picture of my garden. It's going from north to south, the kind of dip in the garden. How do I overcome that? Can I change the spiral to a different area and start the spiral at the top of north and work the dry creek down and do something else? Or is it strictly, is that a south, does it do better in south basically, positioning wise?
No, it's not. You're not tied. I wouldn't say you're tied to having it south facing. It's just that if the herbs get more sun, they'll grow faster. But you're not tied to having it south facing. Yeah,
the nature of a herb spiral is it has a face on every single side, so it's not south facing at all. It's north, south, east, west. It covers dimensions. So you just create the
maybe I used the wrong word. I meant placement, the direction of placement, where you would place it, and not so much facing. Okay,
so obviously that's a bigger question. Without knowing your garden, it's impossible for anyone, for Alex or anyone, to really say where to place a herb spiral. But you place it in a place that is relatively sunny. That's the key thing. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Wonderful. So we have half an hour left, which is mainly questions and answers. What I'm wondering is, so there are certain questions that Sarah asked, which we can answer. What I'm wondering is if it's worth doing a little breakout session for just 5 minutes or something, so that, if people just want to have a quick chat with each other. How does that sound? Yeah, see 1 thumbs up, 2 thumbs up.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll hopefully, last time I did this, I went into a breakout room, and then when I came out, I lost complete control of everything. So if that happens again, the only way out of that situation is to completely stop the entire is to completely stop the call, but then to restart it immediately. So you can just use the same link to join immediately back again, if that happens. This is a new version of software, so hopefully that shouldn't happen anymore. So I'll get you into little breakout rooms of, let's say, 3 to 4 people per room. So You'll see a box pop up in a second, which will say, yeah, please click this link to join. So just click it, follow it, and off you go. Okay, so here we go. Okay, once I see everyone gone, then I'll try and join one of the rooms as well. Okay, you okay there, Kai?